Nothing to tech. Oh, nothing to talk on the min spec front today.
Yeah, one one day of no movement. All right. I feel like they did their thing, right? They
Yep.
they apologized, which again, big step for this company. Um, and they're gonna, we shouldn't expect any news here. I mean, and I said it's funny. I was just doing the notes for Windows Weekly this morning, and it
Mm-hmm.
occurred to me if it wasn't for the whole TPM now CPU debacle,
Mm-hmm.
minimum min spec, as you say. You know what the big problem with Windows 11 would be? The thing we'd all be bitching and moaning about? We forget because that stuff's so big. And I actually wonder if they didn't do that to let this thing slide in under the radar. Windows 11 Home requires an
Oh,
internet
internet
connection and a
connection. Yeah.
Microsoft account. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that, right? Now we will start talking about it because things are going to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes as little sense as anything else that we're complaining about.
Yeah. I mean, I find myself frequently setting up new laptops on submarines, and I do not know what I'm going to do.
Okay, but I will say for those people, I had look. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I don't mean this in a cruel way, but I had a guy email me and he said, I always set up my Microsoft account as a standard account,
Mm-hmm.
and I use a local administrator account as the administrator. And then when I have to approve stuff, I need the password for the administrator. That's completely insecure. that the point of the Microsoft account is you use two-step verification. Mm-hmm. It's the most secure account imaginable. That's the administrator account, and you just use it. That's you're just
Yeah.
you're just making all these extra steps. Anyway, for people who want that configuration or are concerned about this, the workaround that some people realize still exists, which is not that you can fool it during setup, but rather, although I'm sure there's a file you can replace that will fix that, but you can just sign in one time with the Microsoft account, create a local account, make it an administrator, sign into the administrator account, delete the Microsoft account, and just use local accounts if that's what you want. Don't do that, but
You can.
if you're living in a bunker in Idaho or something, and this is the way your brain works, I mean, it's there if you want it. Does that? No, maybe. I always take it one step too far.
Yeah,
anyway.
There's the line, and then Paul Thurrott.
It's just steps.
You can always see the line in his
over it,
rearview
cluelessly. Yep.
The other thing that is going to pop out of this is there's going to be a narrative that comes out, I'm calling it now, that Linux is more user friendly because it doesn't require that cloud connectivity. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's an easy narrative. It's like, oh, you don't want to be tracked by the man. Well, install.
Well, if you don't want to be tracked by the man, you should have been using Linux the whole time. I mean, I'm sorry, but the man has been tracking you. Sorry. I mean, this is really, I used the wrong term. I guess it's just patronizing, but I think of it as parentalism. It's when a tech company thinks they know better than you and they enforce rules on you as if you were their child, and your argument back to them is, yeah, but I'm an adult and I can do whatever I want. It's my device. And they say, go to your room. Well, you're living in my house. You're going to follow my rules. And it is patronizing. I even if it has the best of intents, as we would as parents to our kids, right? I mean, I'm sure everyone has had the moment, and you have many years of this to look forward to as the teenager thing occurs, where the kid goes stomping upstairs dramatically to make a point how mad she is that you won't let her go to the dance or hang out with her friends in the corner or whatever nonsense it is they want to do. And that's how you feel as a Windows or a Mac user. I mean, it's like, but I know better than you. No, you don't.
I miss when the biggest threats in life were like quicksand and playing by the railroad tracks. Like that's that's what I want to go back to.
Yeah, well, I think
I think I threw Paul off his rock.
No, I think all men in general. I don't mean to, and I don't mean that to be sexist, but there is a thing. It is a trope, I think, with men where as we get older, we want the manual transmission, catalytic converter, muscle car from the 70s. We kind of lean toward this it ends up being anti-technology because of the era we live in. But what it really is a kind of nostalgia for some past that honestly we really didn't even experience that much. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's a curious problem. I talk about this. Right? You watch action movies. You watch like John Wick. What does he drive? Does he drive a brand new Corvette with the mid-engine? Blah blah blah. No, he drives a '70s muscle car. That's what they do. That's how he's the hero. He's the good guy.
Yep.
It's I don't know.
He gets to live like in the olden times when we had things like polio and manual transmissions and
yes,
naturally aspirated engines.
I don't know. For some reason, that was better to us in our stupid little dinosaur brains. I don't know. Yeah, we're idiots. Is pretty basically the point of that story.
Once told my daughter was in credit. She's only 8. I think she was 7 at the time.
Yeah,
she said something. It was along these lines. I can't remember. She didn't want to have it for dinner, and I just muttered out something my father would say, and I cringed as it came out. But then she had a great reaction. It was to the effect of, "You can make the decisions when you make a mortgage payment." And she looks at me and goes, "What's a mortgage?"
Right.
It's like that's
don't worry about the entire infrastructure that's over you, protecting you from the planet.
Where do you think that iPad gets Netflix from?
Yeah, exactly. It just comes from God. Don't worry about it.
Oh, anyways, I think this is a tech podcast. But
oh boy, it's just honestly, it's a daily struggle, is all it is. Just making sense of nonsense.
Oh man, I really don't expect. I'm going to say this and then bite my cheek because a whole bunch of stuff will happen today. I'm not expecting much to happen here on out because it's leading up to a holiday weekend, and it's also today's officially the end of Microsoft's fiscal quarter or fiscal year.
That's right.
So
quiet time, as we say.
Yeah.
What's sad this week is for all we kind of talked about this yesterday. We walked into it, but the past week since they announced and then released the first version of Windows 11 has felt like 6 months. Like it's been the craziest condensed time of excitement, and disappointment, and outrage, and debate, and whatever. And part of me welcomes all that stuff, right? It's kind of a nice return to the past, right? But things get overshadowed too. Like Microsoft stupidly yesterday announced the general availability of Xbox Cloud Gaming on Windows and Apple devices, and it's like, guys, this is something that's been years in the making, was barreling towards some conclusion before Apple pulled the rug out from under Microsoft last year, and should have been celebrated as the major milestone that it is.
Yep.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And I feel bad about that kind of stuff. Even even in the world of Windows, like the ARM64EC stuff, which enables developers to mix and match native ARM64 code with x64 code, thus requiring the x64 compatibility layer in Windows and ARM that's not occurring now until Windows 11, apparently. It's big news. Like, that's really big news. And I think for a lot of people, it just gets kind of lost.
Yeah, it's all very big news.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's too bad. I wish they could have spaced this out a little better.
So I do have a request into Xbox PR about this because the hilarity in my head was not forgotten. So what Paul is alluding to, it was Monday, which feels like 3 generations ago. They announced that you can play Xbox games anywhere. That is it, the short version of it. But they also announced that they shoved a whole bunch of Xbox Series X boards into their data centers.
That alone is big news.
Yeah. And it also, so like my monkey brain goes to, it's like, well, that's why I can't find them at Best Buy. They're in all the data centers.
Well, okay, but they're actually custom.
I know they're different, but if you remember, it was last year Microsoft said they expected availability of these devices to be somewhat normalized by this month. Which, if you go to any inventory tracker, they will tell you that is not in fact the case.
Right.
So I have asked if they have any updated guidance on when they think Xbox availability will return to. Or not even return, like become normal.
The wheel has numbers on it that range from 2022 all the way to 2025. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see it this year.
I don't know. So this is where my head goes then. Let's say that Microsoft does know that by Christmas time, probably not going to be easy to buy. Probably not. So what is the incentive? You'll see where I'm going with this. What is the incentive to run a whole bunch of marketing saying buy this console when they can't actually buy it? If Microsoft truly believes that is going to be the case, I bet we see a massive push this fall for Game Pass Ultimate, because that is something you can buy today readily.
It's beautiful too, because the cost of this thing, even if you spaced it out for a year, is a tiny, well, that would be about half, right? How much is the Xbox Series X? 300?
No, it's $499.
500. Okay, so it's less than the third.
God,
I'm like George H.W. Bush trying to use a scanner in a supermarket. That's what happens, buddy, folks. Just watch the deterioration in front of your eyes. How much do things cost? I did this. I went to this is years ago, but I went to the gas pump one day and I filled my car. And I looked over and it was like $50, and I was like, $50? Like, when did this happen? I called my wife. I'm like, when did gas get so expensive? She goes, 2 years ago, you freaking idiot. Anyway, 1 year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is the all you can eat, everything works everywhere. If I don't know how they work it out, but it's $15 a month, so it's probably $150 a year if they offer that kind of thing anymore. That's less than 1/3 the cost of an Xbox Series X. So you could make the argument you could do this for a couple of years, and if you want to buy a console, then they're probably going to be cheaper. They'll be more available. I mean, why stress over it? But it has to work, and this is the key. I mean, I haven't tested it yet since they've announced this, which is goofy. Normally, I would have been all over this.
Yep.
Been a little busy.
Did anything happen this week? No.
Who knows? But I've spent a lot of time doing other stuff, and that's something I really want to look at, because, as I've noted in the past, lag, latency, whatever you want to call it, hasn't been great, and supposedly this is one of the things they've been working on and hopefully have improved. So we'll see. But by the way, $1 for 3 months. I mean, anyone could test it. I mean, if you don't like it, just don't get it. But I mean, it's hard to argue with $1.
Yep. Really is, and that's what they're going for. I suspect that they will have some sort of holiday shopping deal or something. I mean, you could almost make it like just buy a controller.
Buy a controller with it. They should have bundles. It should be just a controller, different types, a controller with a little clip for your phone. They could have those, the third-party things like
these things right here. I've got them right near.
Yeah, what's the name of that thing?
They've got two of them. This is the one I'd probably recommend if you have an iPhone. It's called Backbone. And then this is the Razer one. It's a little more floppy, but they both do the. Well, it's because this one's probably a little bit more versatile because it's stretchy and whatnot.
I want one of those for an iPad. I'm not going to be gaming on an Xbox game on this screen. You know what I mean? But like, I wouldn't. I mean, well, you hold an iPad anyway, right, to play it. I mean, why not?
There's a great vision in my head of you holding an iPad like this with your reading glasses on, but it's only the bottom portion of the bifocals.
It's on a plane. People, I'll be a meme on Twitter when someone takes a picture. Look at this fucking guy. It's going to be me. Yep. No, but I would like to game like that. I think I right now I use a controller with an iPad. It works great. It works great in Call of Duty Mobile, but I don't see why it couldn't work great on Xbox.
Yeah. They've still got some work to do. The single player stuff is fine, but I still struggle with I couldn't play Call of Duty on it.
Yeah, no, it's impossible, and that's the final frontier. I don't know how they. I have moments in Call of Duty, today or these days where the game will slow to a crawl, or suddenly you jut forward and you've been killed and you weren't even there when it happened, that kind of thing. That's just the normal game. I mean, streaming it all. I think it's going to require them anyone who makes that kind of game to re-architect the games. Probably. For that scenario, right? I think, these things have been designed to install locally, and you kind of mix and match between what's going on your screen versus other people, et cetera.
Yeah, actually, Microsoft, I can't remember her name, just made a hire who worked on games like Portal and a couple other things explicitly for...
this was the woman who ran, I don't remember her name either, but
Stadia.
She ran Stadia. Yes, they hired her, very high profile hire, and then she left because she was like, this is not what we talked about.
So you might be onto something there, that eventually the way that Microsoft might have realized, like the way we fixed the final 5% of latency is not to take a game that was previously designed for local. It's like you got to build it in from day one.
Look, backward compatibility is fantastic, and the ability to bring those games to the cloud, obviously, awesome. But ultimately, I think the games of the future are going to have to be designed for the cloud, and I think they need to be almost separate games, like you have to consider it like a separate version of the game. They build today for the consoles, various versions. They build for PC. they'll need to build for whatever the cloud services are too, and I assume they'll be similar.
I bet it's a long journey to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because if you think Microsoft will obviously do it because they have a very big incentive to get that functionality. But if you're in a third-party studio, like when you're placing your bets, it's like, do we want to spend another $200 million to build out that iteration?
For it to make sense for developers, it has to be like the web, in that you build once and it works everywhere, right? One of the big complexities of
I want to hear Microsoft make that pitch another time.
Microsoft can't make that pitch, but I mean, as you switch console generations, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, whether it's PlayStation 4 now or 5 or Xbox One or Series, whatever. The architecture's changed, the hardware's different, the developer kit's changed. There's a whole new. The developers that make games have to spend months and months just figuring it out. That's why the best games that come out are never the year 1 games, as exciting as it is to get those. It's the year 3, 4 games, right?
Yep.
And we're not even in year 1 for the cloud. I think we're in year 0, or whatever you want to call it. It's still. I don't think anyone's. Well, I'm sure people think I'm an idiot. So if I thought of it, others have. But hopefully, game developers, platforms, et cetera, are thinking in these terms and thinking about the future of gaming being cloud first. If that makes sense.